having to key in anything. Right? 5G, the students in the back, please keep your eyes and ears open for 5G. That will make or break things. 5G is the backbone behind IoT, it will become the backbone behind GOT. RF mission all is temporary. Coming to smart meters, you all know smart meters will be in every home. 60% of the world already has smart meters. In India, the BIS for smart meters has been already issued. There has been no certification done as of today. Cost discovery, price discovery is going on. The Union Power Minister has set it a target. And in India, we can offer a market of 250 million meters, bring down the price to $1,000 bucks. Today, it's somewhat more costlier. We have started rolling it out, but it will have tremendous advantages. You will be able to have two-way communications. You will be able to see your consumption continuously. You will be able to utility will know the moment your power goes out, you don't have to phone, okay, and you will be able to do what is called home area automation. That is, you will be able to control your gadgets in the home through your mobile, through your meter. But again, all this brings in terabytes of data. Today we think our utility has something like 7 TB of data coming in annually, okay, and this is going to increase exponentially. So making sense of this, you require data, you require analytics. If you have smart meters in every home, the first advantage in utility you will get is, next year when a young engineer is given a capex, okay, you are given 50 crores for this part of Calcutta, Jadavpur area, where do you spend the money? Today he is bit groping in the dark. He is asking the linesmen, the mistris, the foremen, where should he invest the money? Which gully or road has the maximum outages? With smart meters you will have full data. So you can actually put the money where it's really required. Okay, that is my second last slide. I'll just touch on one or two topics. Demand side management, we all know, CFLs, LED lamps, okay, 5-star your high rating ACs, efficient ACs. There's something called demand response. This is again the future. Why? You see, a utility like CSC or any utility, in our case, 100 megawatt of power differential, 100 megawatt is required only for 15 hours of the year. Means out of 8,000 hours, only for 15 hours one has to have the capacity for additional 100 megawatt pushing, which costs 700 crores in Calcutta. Now that can be deferred, that can be avoided if you can somehow, have a channel by which we can reduce the demand, maybe for 5 or 6 times a year for short durations, and do it through what is called demand response. Utility control demand response through, for example, changing the AC setting in a large shopping mall or in a hotel like this, or maybe shutting down some lifts or escalators for a short period. Okay, that will save the electricity bill of everybody. And I'm glad to announce that apart from this, there is something called integrating distributed energy resources into the grid. One example is how do you integrate, online synchronize the generating sets, gen sets in large industrial houses online. Technically it's not difficult. We have done it. We just did it last week through demand response. Okay, we use the generator of one company called Tata Communications here. We bought it online, remotely switching it on, synchronizing it, and then again gracefully shutting down. The problem was not technical. It is the legal and the commercial. We searched high and low to see who all in India have met the state grid requirements, the Central Electricity Authority 2013 requirements for safety and for grid synchronization. We found that there was not a single company. And now our document has become a sort of a, very good document for anybody to follow, because this is the first document which is following the CEA regulations, complying fully. Cyber security, I think many experts are here. I won't spend much time on this. But it's not that VPNs and firewalls are enough. No. It has to be defense in depth. And again, you have to follow standards and protocols. These are all the time evolving. Nothing is finalized yet. It's a continuous process. So one has to be very careful where you put your money. For example, in control center security, I would say the Department of Homeland Security of the US, the National Cyber Security Division, their DoD program, Defense in Depth program, is possibly one of the most stringent. And this is my last slide. That the future again is what is called IT and OT integration. I'll just spend 2 minutes on this. Look at the bottom line, OT, all the operational technologies. Many speakers have alluded to it. It's like what you have in substation control, substation automation, ring main units, sectionalizers. You want to monitor and operate those. Now you have to take care of smart meters. You have to take care of electric vehicles. Say electric vehicles. You have Nissan Leaf, you have Tesla, you have so many. Are they compatible? They are not compatible. Are there common standards? There are no common standards. Are the connectors the same? No, they are not. But as an utility of the future, we will have to provide the fast charging stations on the roads. Okay? And nobody is going to wait for 2 hours to get his battery charged. They will wait for 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Which means we have calculated we will require a charger with at least about 100 kilowatt capacity. Thick cables which have to be lifted and plugged in. Now are you going to have a cable and an adapter for a Nissan vehicle, another for a Tesla vehicle? I don't know. So a lot of standardization work is required there. I talked about demand response. We are doing a pilot. There is still no standardization. IEC, BIS, IEEE talk about standards. They don't talk about interoperability. There's a huge, huge difference. So nowadays you have things coming up. It's called alliances. You have the 3G alliance. You have the Wi-Sun alliance. So you have to not only see that the standards are met, you have to see that the interoperability is complied with through alliance standards. Similarly for storage, huge things coming up in storage. Lithium-ion batteries, flow batteries. Okay? And on the top bus you can see the information technology, which feeds the SCADA systems also. The information technology are basically in 2 groups. One is the legacy group on the right. That is, things like what you have your customer information system, billing system, asset management. Now you're not going to throw away everything. So all will have to talk to each other. In CSC today we have got 317 software applications running. Now if you want to marry all these together, we can't afford to throw away all those and go for a new protocol. So you have to have a middleware, the ESB, Enterprise Service Bus. Again, there are many protocols for those, like Common Information Module is one, Multispeak is another, and one can try and pipe in those through the ESB bus. And the new technologies like Advanced Distribution Management System, EMS, load flow, contingency analysis, short circuit analysis, those can be done through the new bus, outage management system. So this gives you a picture of the challenges ahead, and I'll just end by saying we have indeed moved forward. We have already floated a tender, not asking for components of this. For the first time what we have done is, we said, look, there is no vendor whom we can guarantee that we don't have the knowledge to say that I want this is for the battery and storage. I don't know. It will be a phased handshaking over the next 10 years. So we are now looking for a technology partner, not for a vendor for supplying materials. And the bid simply says that show us how competent you are for being a technology partner. Do you have engineers who are in the standards making bodies? Do you have engineers who have contributed to this technology, original contribution? That is becoming the deciding factor. And we hope to take out this will be the evaluation next week. Thank you. I hope I have given some idea of the...
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Ladies and gentlemen, this session is basically as a stepping stone to the post-lunch sessions on technology, renewables, and the business side of the new age energy management scenario. In fact, Mr. Gupta has given us an excellent overview of the power distribution facilities for the future with a focus on integration, space management, and analytics. We have 2 more speakers in this session, and may I now request Mr. Santosh Kamath, Partner Infrastructure, Government, Healthcare, KPMG Advisory Services, to please put his perspectives for the energy sector as a whole. Mr. Kamath.
Thank you very much. Respected dignitaries on the dais and the delegates in the audience, it's my pleasure to be here. The title of my presentation is The Changing Face of the Power Sector. Now, we are in very interesting times, and what I really truly believe is that this is a very defining moment for the power sector over the next 5 to 10 years, and it's at a cusp in many ways. Now here is why I'm saying that. Renewables is set to grow very rapidly. Okay. Our own forecast says that over the next 10 years, it will contribute about 20% to the energy mix. In capacity terms, it will be even higher, but just in energy terms, it will be about 20%. And thereafter, it's going to accelerate even faster after 10 years. So this 20% number on an incremental basis from now to 2025 will actually be more like 40%, on an incremental basis. But when I take the overall stock of power generation today, that will be only about 20%. Now, this changing energy mix overlaps with one other interesting development on the technology space, and the previous speaker, Mr. Gupta, spoke about that, which is digitalization of utilities. Okay? So that's the second big theme which is going to impact the power sector. And the third is a rise of storage technologies. And again, the previous speaker spoke about that, and he made a reference to Elon Musk. And that's going to be a game changer. These three things are coming together. And that's why we believe that the power sector is at a cusp. And it's going to look very different 10 years from now. Okay. A change we have not seen over the last 50 years is something we're going to see in the next 7 to 10 years. Now, from a climate perspective, renewable energy increase will contribute for India about 5% reduction in the emission intensity. Okay. Our COP target is about 30 to 33%, but renewables itself will be around 5%. There are other contributors, including energy efficiency, supercritical technology, and various other areas like transport sector and so on. Now, just going into each of these three themes, the first one, which I said was the rapid rise of renewable energy, and this graph in some ways illustrates that. Solar power today has already breached import coal in terms of cost, and we believe by around 2019-2020 it is going to breach domestic coal as well. So what we are saying is by around that time at 2020, solar power will be cheaper than domestic coal based power generation. Okay. Yes, it has got intermittency. It has got, it's not available throughout the day, 24 hours. So those are drawbacks. But purely from a cost perspective, it's going to become cheaper. Now, what does this mean? It means the PLF of coal generators is going to fall. And it's already beginning to fall, as we have seen earlier. But we expect it will fall by 10 to 15% by 2020 because of the rise of renewables. In certain states which are renewables heavy. I mean, this will not be all India, but in certain states which are renewable heavy. And post 2020, we are going to see very rapid additions of solar. The second big wave is the storage technology. And today, the cost of storage is roughly $350 to $400 per kilowatt hour. So that translates to about 12 rupees per kilowatt hour in terms of storing 1 unit of electricity and retrieving it. Still very expensive. Okay? But look at the trajectory. And the US Department of Energy has set a target of $125 per kilowatt hour by 2022. Okay? Now that would mean around 5 rupees, as the cost of 4.5 to 5 rupees as the cost of storing 1 unit of electricity and retrieving it. Now what does that mean? And again, referring to the previous speaker, Mr. Devashish Gupta, he talked about, will there be a utility, in the future? Okay. Now, here is what we have introduced. We have coined a term called the solar house. Okay. Now, the solar house is a concept where potentially you could have households which can become completely independent in their energy, in meeting their energy requirements. Okay. Now we have shown the calculation for us for an independent two-story house, where if you take the roof area, okay, and we have taken about, for a middle income household, about 500 square feet of roof area, okay, it can generate about 200 kilowatt hours of solar electricity per month. Okay. And the average demand for a middle income household is around 150 to 200 kilowatt hours. You know, if I take a higher income household, obviously presumably the roof area will also be more, and you know, again the equation almost works out. So what we are saying is that for a two-story house, the roof area could be sufficient to meet their electricity needs. You know. Now the second question is cost. Is it's going to happen in the night when there's no solar electricity? So that's where the storage comes in. And what we have shown there, you know, the second set of columns is 2022, and if we just focus on that, the cost of supply of the utility in that year, we expect it to be around 7 rupees. That's the cost of supply. Okay. The solar rooftop cost, we expect it to be around 420 in that year. Now, if I consider storage and looking at the trajectory which we saw earlier, the net cost comes to about 7 rupees 60 paise. Okay. Now, you don't have to store every unit of electricity. You just have to store enough to meet your nighttime requirements. So, we are almost there. And this is at a cost of supply of 697 or 7 rupees. The reality today is the tariffs are higher than this. You know, for many sections of consumers. They're already higher, and by 2022 it's going to be even higher. So what we are saying is, we are approaching a scenario where theoretically, you know, you can be independent of the grid. Okay. Now, will it happen in practice? May not be so soon. Okay. Because there are a number of other factors like reliability. What if, you know, you have long spells of cloudy days? You know, so you would still need the utility, at least in the near foreseeable future. But clearly what this is showing for the first time is that we are emerging a scenario where this can become possible, you know, for certain sections of consumers. Now the third is digitalization. And I think the previous speaker spoke about it adequately, but I'll just cover in brief. The utility of the future is going to look very different. You're going to have rooftop solar, grid-scale solar, you're going to have power trading, net metering, retail suppliers, and we talked about the amendment where there's going to be competition and consumers can choose their retail suppliers, grid-scale storage, electric vehicle charging, that's another interesting development. And then you have an integrated NOC, you know, network operating center, which again, the previous speaker spoke about that, already happening. The utility of the future is going to look very different. And with digital technology at the core, integrating all this. And I'll just leave this example behind about Entelios. It's a company which is having a very unique business model of integrating consumers, aggregating consumers, and providing various services such as demand response. This is going to be very important as we increase renewables in the grid. And we have done some calculation in one of the states where the intermittency of renewables, we have taken solar power, is the standard deviation is about 10%. You know, so which means there's an error of 10% of the capacity which is possible between what you forecast and what it can actually be because of cloud cover and weather and so on. Right? So when you're going to have large amounts of renewables, okay, a 10% variation in a particular state, of course the larger area you take, the standard deviation reduces, but for a particular state, a 10% deviation can be quite a lot. You know, if I take, for example, Andhra Pradesh, we are looking at 3,000 megawatts of solar in the next 2 years. Okay, 10% is about 200 to 300 megawatts. So that much unpredictability can be there, and so you need various solutions, and demand response is one of them to address that. Finally, just to summarize in 2 slides more, what does this mean? First, planning needs a new paradigm. Okay. I think it's time for India to have a new integrated energy policy. The last one we had, if I remember, was 10 years back. And I think it's time for us to rethink what our overall integrated energy policy should be. Second, more from a generator standpoint, generators need to bring in flexibility. We are going to see increased ramp rates. We are going to see technical minimum levels having to come down, and this illustration we have shown in Germany. March of last year there was a total solar eclipse, and Germany has the highest solar installed capacity at that time. I think now China has probably overtaken, but at that time Germany had the highest, about 35 gigawatt. And when the solar eclipse came, you can see that the solar generation, you know, just dipped and suddenly rose back. So you need to have the generators which can balance this. You need to have generators which can balance this. And getting our generators, coal generators to do this is an extremely important task. I understand the government is already working on this, but this is really going to be a very important area. Thank you. I'll just leave it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamath, for your address. Mr. Deepak Amitav has to leave because he's taking again the afternoon flight back to Delhi. May I request our President to kindly give a memento as a token of appreciation to Mr. Amitav from the Chamber. The President now has a very pleasant task. He is going to release the position paper on the theme prepared by CUTS, I am told, and if the position paper can please be circulated amongst the members here. The contents, it's a draft paper as it stands now. The contents are also available on the Chamber's website. We would welcome your comments and
This paper is available on our website www.bengalchamber.com. I would request my colleague Shombit to please navigate the site and show you. So you can download it now also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yep, thank you. And may I now request Mr. Uday Mehta to make a presentation on this position paper from CUTS. Uday, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think the challenge which I understand is that I'm standing between the lunch and all of you in this room. And I think the challenge also becomes much more having, you know, as the last speaker in a session, because by the time you reach, I think everything has been told. So I also feel extremely humbled to be part of this dais, and I believe I would be the youngest on the dais itself in terms of age and experience. So I don't think I can really add knowledge in terms of what has already been spoken by the dignitaries on the dais in terms of the nuts and bolts of the sector, the challenges which one faces, and then why we're talking about sustainable growth and energy security. However, what I would like to do is to leave all of you with 3 points in terms of, and giving it a slightly more broader picture to what we are talking and why we are doing this whole conference. But before I get into my 3 points, and I'll just take 5 to 6 minutes, I would like to first and foremost thank BCCI for providing CUTS with the opportunity for partnership. And this is a partnership which has been extended since last year, and we extremely and deeply value the partnership with BCCI. My brief intervention, I just would like to remind the audience and would like to contextualize my presentation on the basis of one important goal, which is goal number 7 of Sustainable Development Goals. I think that's extremely important for us to be reminded of why we are talking about the issue of sustainable growth, energy security and renewable energy. As part of goal number 7, it has 5 targets which has to be achieved by 2030, which is a commitment by all countries including India. So I'll just quickly run you through the 5 targets, and that will just help us contextualize on what was being discussed since morning. First is ensure universal access to affordable, reliable and modern energy services. Second, increase substantially the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix. And I think that's been the whole focus of the session since morning, about how we can play a role as a developing nation in terms of increasing and enhancing our contribution towards clean energy. Third, double the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency. Fourth, enhance international cooperation to facilitate access to clean energy research and technology, and also to enhance and promote investments in energy. And last but not the least, is to expand infrastructure and upgrade technology for supplying modern and sustainable energy services. So given this context of important goal number 7 of Sustainable Energy Development Goals, I think this today's conference being organized by BCCI is extremely timely, and I'm sure it was going to provide, in the following sessions are going to provide some inputs for the specific goals. I just wanted to highlight 2 important narratives, what's really happening at a global level, including India. And in terms of that, would like to contextualize and also for us to think from the perspective of clean energy. First is the whole initiative on smart cities. Previous authors, speakers have also spoken about it. We already have an agenda and a target to create close to 100 smart cities. Maybe we might want to change the narrative and add the term sustainable to the smart cities, and repackage it as, and refocus it as smart and sustainable cities. While smart cities definition does emphasize on sustainability, but I think it requires more focus and it should be more affronted. Second important narrative which is also changing at a global level is the whole concept of circular economy. What does circular economy really means? It's another area in which work is being undertaken, and it's an alternative concept to linear resource systems, which basically means take, make and dispose. And that's a narrative which is changing at a global level. And it is more focused on energy efficiency, and it's a model which focuses on 3 R's. And what are these 3 R's? It basically means reuse, remanufacture and recycle. I think that's an extremely important goal in terms of how the world economy is changing towards a circular economy of reusing it, remanufacturing it and recycling. Keeping in that narrative in perspective, we also do have a big challenge which we face when it comes to clean energy, has been the need for finances. Let me give you some figures in terms of the requirement for finances which is in this sector. To begin with,